Hi, my name is Jenelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety, and welcome to this SAG-AFTRA Foundation Conversation at Home with the EDDY. Please join me in welcoming the actor and singer who portrays Julie on the new Netflix drama. You've seen her previously in movies like The Hate U Give and Everything, Everything. Please welcome Amandla Stenberg. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I know I've asked you this before, but I have a terrible memory, and this is primarily an audience of SAG actors, so I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card?
Sure. Oh my God. Okay, let me try to remember. I remember it must have been when I was about 8 or 9, because I have a distinct memory of not having my SAG card and being on a commercial set as a kid with another actor. And I remember him asking me, "Are you SAG?" And I didn't know what it meant. He was probably like 8 years old. And I was like, "No, I'm not." And he was like, "Oh, well then I guess we can't hang out." And I was like, oh. I remember that sticking with me.
Oh my God.
That really left a lasting impact. I was like, I guess I got to be SAG. So I think it was probably pretty soon after that I got it. And I remember like having like being satisfied about it. But it was like a commercial set. I did a ton of commercials when I was a kid.
Do you remember the products you were advertising?
Yeah, I did a lot. I did McDonald's, Walmart. I remember the first commercial I did was for this doll called Fivesies, which I don't think was a very particularly successful brand, but it was like a 5 dolls that were connected together. That was like the first thing that I did, and then just like, I don't know, health insurance, random stuff. I actually did one of the commercials I did when I was younger, which I still like love, is for the Martin Luther King Memorial, and like they had me kind of like do this scene where I walked in front of a big portrait of Martin Luther King. I was maybe like 9 years old, and I was wearing a shirt that said "Future President," and it was like this really inspirational, like beautiful piece. And so I'm like glad that I got to be a part of it. And actually, also that after that I actually attended the inauguration of the memorial. And
Wow.
yeah.
That's so cool. And it's funny, actually, when you started talking about that kid who gave you attitude, I do remember that story because I remember snotty.
You do?
Yeah. I didn't remember how you got it.
I've told you the story before.
Yeah. I definitely remember that kid.
Yeah. He shall not be named, but I'm known.
I like to believe you like I like to believe it ends with you saying, "And that was Leonardo DiCaprio."
Let's just like insert that and pretend.
Okay. He's a lot younger than we thought. Or you're a lot older than we thought.
He's a brilliant actor. He transforms entirely.
Right? You're playing a little kid 10 years ago. So I want to start at the beginning with the EDDY, because this is your first series regular on a television show, even though in many ways it feels like a movie. It really does, like the production value and the scope. What attracted you to the project, and specifically the role of Julie?
I was really excited by Damien Chazelle's vision for it, and the producer's vision as well. I mean, the show was like constructed to be like this verite, like very inspired by French New Wave cinema, like almost documentarian in style, like following in the lineage of French cinema. And that was super exciting to me because I love French cinema, and I also love like French acting. And so to be directed by French directors was such an exhilarating opportunity. And in terms of Julie, I think I was inspired by the opportunity to play somebody who I think is very different than me. And that's always like a really exciting challenge. And I loved how playful she was. I love how little she cares about what people think. I think it's rare that particularly Black girls get to kind of lean into that like angsty trope or be messy and vulnerable and confused. Like, I feel like oftentimes we have to play characters that are like have it together and you know, like know like what coping mechanisms to use and are strong and kind of hold other people up. And it was exciting to not do that, to play someone who was really in the throes of figuring out how to be a person, and it doesn't always look pretty. Oh wait,
yeah, in some ways it's fun to get to be the person who gets to fall apart and get into trouble.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and like not something that I feel like I necessarily let myself do. So to explore those feelings that I had kind of in adolescence, but like never really acted on, like was definitely kind of gratifying.
I know that you mentioned Damien Chazelle was a director on this series. He directed the first 2 episodes. And I understand that in sort of setting the tone for the whole series, he gave you guys movies to watch.
Yeah.
What were some of the films, and how did that help you?
It was a really great list. A lot of it was French cinema. I think, I'm trying to remember what was on there. I think there's a fair bit of Godard on there, like Breathless, and then Girlhood by Celine Sciamma, and then I love that movie so much. Blue's Warmest Color was on there. There was also this movie called The Class, which I'm pretty sure it won Cannes one year. I'm not exactly positive, but it was really beautiful, very fast-paced kind of documentary, and exploring the dynamics between a teacher and his students at the school that's in the suburbs of France, of Paris. And then one of the movies that he really enjoyed that we watched, and so did our second unit director, Huda Benyamina, was A Nous Amours, which is like a French film. It's like a father-daughter story, and since that's a lot of the EDDY is that relationship. That was kind of what we took inspiration from.
And actually, you're a singer, so this is, a perfect role for you. You get to show off the singing chops. But you also, from what I understand, have kind of a unique connection to jazz itself. This is something I just learned about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I never knew.
Yeah, I was named after a Miles Davis album. Well, loosely. I mean, I was named after a Miles Davis album, and that album was named after a concept that was very powerful and big, which is like Amandla, which means power to the people. It's like an anti-apartheid rallying cry in South Africa, and I think Miles Davis, took inspiration from that concept and titled his album after that. And then my mom kind of named me after both, So yeah, but the Miles Davis album was an important aspect of it. My mom loves Miles Davis. I definitely grew up listening to jazz, particularly jazz singers. So that was also an element of the show that was super exciting to me, and it was so much fun. It was like every single day just being able to like be around all these world-class jazz musicians who were constantly falling into improvisations and just setting the tone of the whole set. It was like a real pleasure, real pleasure.
I mean, it sounds like there was basically a jazz concert every day, because am I wrong? Did they play live?
Yeah.
Wow. You just get to sit there and witness it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also the recording, the jazz club was built for the show, and they constructed it so that it would also function as a recording studio, so that they could like record everything live. So there was really complicated like lighting, engineer, music setup that I could not possibly explain correctly, but just to ensure that the music could be recorded, and that everything was like authentic, and yeah, it was like the kind of set where everybody would hang out for like an hour after we wrapped, because like there would be a concert, that like never happens. The people there are not like, all right, and I'm signing up, see ya. Like everyone actually like stay, want to be in the energy of the set, like enjoy the music together. It was very magical.
And then on top of everything else, you're in Paris.
Yeah.
I mean, this is too amazing. Had you been there before?
Well, I've been there a couple times, like for 1 or 2 days. Like after I graduated from high school, I did the like Europe backpacking thing, and I was there for like a brief amount of time, but I didn't even really know how to travel like or experience the city. So I was just blundering my way through. But this time around, I got to really learn the city it was one of my favorite places in the world, definitely.
That's so cool. How else did you go about preparing for Julie? Was there anything else that, really helped you build the character?
Yeah, well, I did a lot of thinking about people who I know who are existing in precarious positions, or maybe have had issues with substance abuse, or just like generally don't have their intentions understood by people around them, or maybe are just kind of like psychologically not the most apt for the way like the world is constructed. Like I thought about that, and that kind of led me to like reading some stuff. I read like Girl Interrupted before we went into filming, and then I also just wanted to delve into like classic themes of adolescence, so I was like carrying Catcher in the Rye around with me, which is like maybe a little corny here, like not super cool or unique, but that book also was like important to me in high school, and I felt like there were a lot of elements of the character. She's kind of like a Holden Caulfield kind of person.
I totally see that. Catcher in the Rye is a great book. I think because it is so famous, sometimes people forget just how good it is.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm a huge Salinger fan for sure. He's really good at capturing, people who are having a hard time with existing in the structures that have been built for us. And then what else did I do? I had like a lot of I always use music a lot as a tool. So I always like make playlists for the characters that I work on, and I'll like only really wear clothes that I think that they'll wear and stuff like that. I like have a lot of fun with it. Yeah.
Like even when you're not shooting, like when you're out and about, do you dress as that character?
Yeah, I mean, with a little bit more of me thrown in there, but like generally, like if I'm working on someone and I know I'm going away for a while to work on a project, I'll just kind of bring only things that I think they might possess or connect to. And yeah, just play with that.
How long were you in Paris working on this?
6 months.
Wow. Okay, so you really got to know the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And probably did all the touristy things, the Eiffel Tower and all that.
Yeah, I did all the touristy things. I did all the non-touristy things. Yeah, I had such a beautiful time. Just kind of like exploring the undercurrents of the city. I feel like I didn't really understand that before. Like I knew that like Paris was this cultural epicenter and kind of this like place of solace for, like particularly like Black expats. And like the history of that and everything, but I didn't really understand it until I was there. And I would be like walking down the street and like enter a bar, and then like, oh, there's like a poetry reading happening in the basement, or like something like that. Yeah, I learned so much. It was a really beautiful place to explore.
So for someone who's never been, what's the one thing that they can't miss if they make it to Paris?
Oh my God, that's so hard.
Assuming that they're going to do the super touristy things, The
okay, touristy vibes. Well, if one was to go during the summer, which I don't know if that'll happen now because of quarantine, but eventual summer, there's this festival that goes up right next to the Louvre, called Fête des Tuileries, like Festival of the Tulips. And it's like a fair. It's like a fair with carnival rides, and it's like in the middle of like these gardens, and like you get on, I don't know what the ride is called, the swinger or whatever. Whatever. If you get on it, when you reach the top, you have this beautiful view of like the Eiffel Tower and kind of that whole area with museums, and yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
The EDDY has really such an amazing international cast. Your primary scene partner is the wonderful Andre Holland. I don't know if you knew him at all before this, or if this was the first time you met and worked together, but you really have the father-daughter dynamic down, and you're kind of estranged at the start. So maybe you really didn't have to know each other, but I'm sort of curious if that chemistry was, there from the beginning, or it was something you sort of built.
Yeah, I mean, I had met Andre maybe once or twice. We've actually talked about this, but like briefly in passing. So we really didn't know each other, but I was familiar with his work. And, when I saw that Andre was attached to that was like a major reason why I was interested in the project, just because I think the caliber of his work is so incredible and his choices are so fantastic. And I just thought it'd be amazing to work with him. And it was really cool that like the characters are estranged in the beginning of the series and they develop a relationship throughout it, because we kind of got to do like this, I don't know, have this parallel experience and almost lean into the fact that we didn't like have that much history with each other, but definitely be settled on like a common like, okay, so this is the history that we have together, and we talked through it. Like, this is when Elliot left. This is when they got divorced. Like, this is when Julie started having issues with this. We kind of became like real partners in that way. And like, I do not know how I would have honestly like gone through this series without Andre as like a scene partner, because so much of the series was improvisational. We were given like so much freedom to just like we would use the script as like a loose framework, and then we would really just go for it. And like if I didn't have Andre to like confer with and like really decide and develop like what the character's relationship was and where we were in the story, like if we weren't making those decisions together, I don't know what would have happened. I don't know what I would have done. I feel like so often like I was just taking his lead or he was taking my lead. Like we definitely became like a little unit. Like we were so like such creative collaborators and like so close by the end of the series. It was such a pleasure to work with him.
Have you ever worked that way before, where you're doing a lot of improv, or was that kind of a new skill for you?
No, I hadn't. I'd honestly never really done improv before. I have had a kind of a relationship to roles before where like I've been encouraged to like contribute, like maybe contribute to what I thought the character would do or say, or maybe like come up with some stuff, but I'd never been given so much freedom before. It was really liberating and really just such a unique experience that I'm not sure it could have happened necessarily on like an American set. It was very much the style and tone of the series and the way that we were working.
Was it intimidating? Did it take you a little while to get used to it?
Yeah, it did. And I think like sometimes I feel like more critical like of the work that I did and like of the character, because I'm like, I had so much free range. I'm like, so this is something that I really constructed. So like it really falls on me, if like people understand the character, if they empathize, if they don't. We were definitely encouraged, especially at the beginning of the series, to like follow our impulses like to the max, like to 200%. Like I think especially Damien and Huda were looking for like what would feel explosive and what would like create real tension and like what would be like uncomfortable and difficult. And so I kind of like noticed that when I'm watching, because I see like the ways in which we're like leaning into those parts of it, and then how like that kind of like lessens and smooths out a little bit as the characters like get to know each other.
I could be wrong, but I believe this is Damien's first foray into television as well, having made just spectacular movie after spectacular movie. What was he like to work with as a director?
I feel like this word is so like cliche to use, but I think he's like truly such a dynamic director. Like I kind of feel like he's like a magician or like a plate spinner, just like keeping plates spinning all over the place, and then seeing how the energy of that like I don't know, like adds to itself, and like what that brings to fruition. I feel like he like leans into that in a way that I wasn't expecting, honestly, but I think was maybe kind of unique to the series too. Like, I think he was working in a way that he hadn't quite done before, but he has such a history of cinema, has such a knowledge of cinema history and like such a passion for it, that was so evident, like in everything that he did, and created this like safety net where we like understood the vision that he had and the history of that vision. And yeah, it's amazing when you like see an artist who, I guess, does what artists do, which is they have their practice and their familiarity with their practice, and you know, they have the, what's the right word, they have like, they've done the work so that they have the foundation for their practice, and then they just kind of toss it out and like let it fly, so that what is really magical about art, which is like the nuance and the sprinkle that comes from spontaneity and just trusting your intuition, can really manifest. Yeah.
I love being able to talk about the show as a whole, since it's all available right now on Netflix. But what did end up being the most challenging part of the role, or the most challenging scene, looking back on all the episodes?
Oh my God.
She goes through a lot, so I'm asking
I think part of what was challenging was language barrier between the directors and me and Andre, as like the only Americans on set. Because Huda Benyamina is like not fluent in English, but also like such an impassioned, brilliant spirit, like witch, psychic, kind of craftsman of a director, that she just like had no interest really in speaking to us in English. Like, she would speak to us directly in French, and then we would like have like a translator. Her name is Danny Harcourt, actually. She do so much work on set because there's so many different people speaking different languages. And she'd be there to translate as quickly as she could, but like, it didn't really matter. We always understood her intention, even if we didn't understand exactly what she was saying. Like, just through her movements and the energy in her eyes, like, you could understand what was going on. But sometimes it would be challenging, like, especially in moments where we were really trying to decide what the scene was and what was going to happen in the scenes. And so much of it was improvisational in that sense. That would be challenging, because it's like, how do you like real time like write a scene when you like, you don't all speak the same language. So once in a blue moon, that would be challenging. I like think particularly about there's one scene where like Julie's upset because she's basically like found out that her mom paid her dad like a bunch of money to ensure that she keeps going to school, when, you know, all she really wants to do is like be with her dad, which is a teenage way of thinking. Doesn't make the most sense, but anyways, then the scene that was written was kind of this big fight where like Elliot like punches a wall or like almost hits Julie, but like Andre didn't feel comfortable with that, and it didn't feel right. And so we're like all trying to figure out what the scene would be and how it would manifest. And Huda Benyamina was the one who was like, okay, Julie needs to get up on the stage, and she needs to hit all the keys on the keyboard, and she needs to throw a mic stand. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I wasn't prepared for that, to be doing that. But it, like, the day arrived, and she was like, this is what we're gonna do. And I was like, okay, cool. I gotta figure out how to make this feel real, you know, and how to like let that sort of rage come out. So that was a hard day.
How many times did you have to do that?
I don't know, maybe did it 7 or 8.
Oh my God.
Maybe more. I don't know. And it really was very improvisational. Like, we really were improvising that entire scene. I think Huda was interested in just like honing in on what in the scene she felt was real and like contributed to the narrative. So yeah, one point she was she was like, okay, I want you to make him as upset as you possibly can. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, make him upset, like press his buttons, whatever buttons you think there possibly could be, press them. And so I had to like say the most vile, like rude, just like, oh my God, I like couldn't believe the things that I was saying to Andre. I was like, oh my God, please, like I like let's compartmentalize. Like I hope none of it like sticks, you know. And that was hard. I didn't like necessarily want to do that to him, but I think like what she was looking for was like that really authentic reaction from him. She's very much like a puppeteer. She'll really play with her actors and like push them in ways that are really unconventional and really fun and amazing. There were times where she would like spin me around in a circle like 7 times and like whisper in my ear and then like push me and be like, go. And I'd be like, you know, like steeled to deliver my scene. Yeah.
That's so interesting because you're working with several different directors over the course of a series and they all might have different styles. It's really, and you would never know because the show as a whole is so cohesive.
That's really great to hear because that's something that I think like we were concerned about real time. But I feel the same way when I watch it. I feel like the show really knows what it is. And so even if it strays, you know, the first 2 episodes are on film and then the rest of them are digital. That's just because Damien wanted to shoot his episodes on film, you know. But I think that's something that's really cool about the show. I think that the directors having, you know, disparate ideas or styles, but then still playing within the realm of what the show is and what the tone is like kind of reflective of the nature of the show, which is like or the subject, which is jazz, you know, and like style and tone and kind of like finding your pocket.
Before we go, I want to remind everyone that for information on SAG-AFTRA Foundation's COVID Relief Fund, they can look in the comments. And sort of to that, I'm just sort of asking everybody during this very strange time, what are you doing to sort of occupy your time and stay creative? Are there things you're watching or reading, or are you able to create your own work right now?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of things. Some of them are more productive. Some of them really are not. I definitely binged like 2 seasons of MTV's Catfish.
No way.
Yeah. Just a really fascinating show. Sometimes I'm playing video games. Other times I'm reading. Recently I read Miranda July book of short stories.
Oh yeah, I love her.
I really loved it. Yeah, she's very bizarre, but like so like tender and sweet. It's a really cool combination. What other stuff I've been doing? Drawing, making music, yoga, and I like try to have like virtual connections with people. I like follow a lot of musicians and stuff, so I've been kind of, you know, like keeping tabs on whatever online concerts or performances have been happening, which has been so nice. But also I've been like going to Zoom parties once in a blue moon and like catching DJ sets, and like kind of playing with like virtual stuff in a way that I've never experienced before. I keep thinking like we're gonna come out of this like a real, like our social lives being really like based in virtual reality, and that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, very much so. And also I'm having to learn to do things that normally I would just ask someone else to do when it comes to like the computer or hooking up a printer or figuring out the internet. Normally I'd just be like, never mind, someone will take care of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to come out like really loving Zoom and really good at technology.
Yeah, that's exciting. It's definitely a good time for getting good at things that you never really push yourself to do otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't have time as an excuse. We have the time to figure it out
Yeah.
now. Well, I want to remind everyone that the EDDY, you can catch all the episodes right now on Netflix. I want to thank you so much for being here today, and thank everyone for watching.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate it.